1971. The most decorated soldier in modern American history walks onto national television and destroys his own career with a single truth. 90 combat medals. Command of the legendary Tiger Force, a reputation inside the Pentagon as the finest combat officer the U.S. Army ever produced. And he throws it all away. Not because he failed, not because he broke under pressure, but because he said out loud what the U.S. military leadership refused to admit. What followed was swift and brutal. The Pentagon demanded his resignation. Former allies turned their backs. A lifetime of service was erased overnight. Colonel David Hackworth became radioactive. But here is the part nobody talks about. After the scandal, after the resignation, after his own country abandoned him, David Hackworth did not hide. He did not retreat to a quiet American suburb. He did not fade into obscurity. Instead, he bought a one-way ticket to Australia, and he stayed there for 10 years. 10 years. America's greatest living warrior, living on the Gold Coast, building businesses, raising a family, living among Australians. Why? Why would the most decorated American soldier choose to live among foreigners instead of his own people? The answer has everything to do with what he witnessed in the jungles of Vietnam, and the soldiers who changed the way he understood war forever. Australian soldiers. Australian SAS. Men who moved like ghosts. So effective that the Pentagon classified reports rather than admit the truth. Hackworth spent decades tearing apart American generals. He publicly destroyed secretaries of defense. He condemned presidents. But about Australia? Not one negative word. Ever. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to learn will change everything. You think you know about who truly mastered jungle warfare in Vietnam, and why America's greatest soldier chose to live among allies he believed were superior. A soldier born to War David Hackworth won on November 11, 1930, in Los Angeles, California. That date was no coincidence. November 11th, Armistice Day, the anniversary of the end of World War I, a day sacred to soldiers across the world. It was as if fate itself had marked this child for war. His childhood was harsh. His father disappeared early. His mother struggled to survive in Depression-era America. Young David learned early that life rewarded only toughness, adaptability, and refusal to quit. Those lessons would later keep him alive in places most men never returned from. At just 15 years old, Hackworth did something unthinkable today. He lied about his age and enlisted in the United States Army. It was 1945, the final year of World War II. Recruiters weren't asking many questions. The boy became a soldier before he was old enough to drive. He missed World War II combat, but Korea would give him far more than he ever imagined. Korea, where legends are for June 1950, North Korean forces storm across the 38th parallel. David Hackworth, now 20 years old, is a sergeant desperate for combat. What he experiences in Korea would break most men. Frozen mountains, relentless enemy assaults, close quarters fighting that left no room for fear. Hackworth thrived. He earned a battlefield commission, rising from enlisted man to officer purely through combat excellence. Silver Star. Then another. Then another. Each medal marked a moment where he performed something extraordinary under fire. By the end of Korea, David Hackworth was no longer just a soldier. He was a phenomenon. But Korea was only preparation. Vietnam would expose everything that was wrong with modern American warfare. Vietnam, a war the system could not win. By the time U.S. ground forces arrived in Vietnam in 1965, Hackworth already knew the terrain, the enemy, and the culture. And he knew something else. America was making catastrophic mistakes. Washington demanded body counts. The Pentagon worshipped firepower. Generals measured success by bombs dropped and artillery fired. They were trying to win a guerrilla war with conventional doctrine. They were trying to defeat an enemy that moved like water. By smashing everything in sight, the cost was unbearable. American soldiers died needlessly. Vietnamese civilians paid the price. Good men were destroyed by bad leadership. Hackworth saw it all, and it haunted him. Tiger Force and the Cost of Failure in 1966. Hackworth took command of Tiger Force, a feared long-range reconnaissance unit. They were lethal. They penetrated areas no other units could reach. They delivered results, but they also reflected the moral corrosion of the war, pressure for body counts, dehumanization of the enemy. Leadership rocked from the top down. Tiger Force became associated with atrocities. Hackworth himself was never implicated, but he witnessed firsthand how a broken system could turn soldiers into monsters. The war was eating the U.S. Army alive, the Australians. The moment everything changed by 1969, Hackworth commanded the 4th Battalion, 39th Infantry. He transformed it into the hardcore battalion, disciplined, aggressive, effective. But then he visited the Australian base at Nui. And everything changed. What Hackworth saw there shocked him. No massive helicopter assaults. No endless artillery barrages. No obsession with firepower. Instead, 5-man patrols slipping silently into the jungle. Minimal gear. No radio chatter. No wasted movement. They vanished for days. They waited patiently. And when they struck, the enemy never saw it coming. These Australians had mastered jungle warfare in Malaya and Borneo. They had refined it over decades. They didn't try to dominate the jungle. They became part of it. Australian trackers read broken twigs and disturbed leaves like text on a page. Some had learned from Aboriginal instructors, skills developed over 40,000 years. The Viet Cong feared them. Villagers called them ghosts, and American officers watched in disbelief as tiny Australian patrols achieved what entire U.S. battalions could not. Hackworth's honest VRD was too professional to ignore reality. In his memoir, About Face, he wrote words that still echo today. The Australians taught us a thing or two about counterinsurgency. He went further. You will not find a better jungle soldier than an Australian soldier. And then the line that stunned the Pentagon. They were the only white men who truly knew how to fight in the jungle. This was not flattery. This was professional judgment from the most battle-tested American officer alive. The experiment the Pentagon HTD Hackworth did something unheard of. New American lieutenants joining his battalion had to train with Australians first. Before commanding U.S. troops, they embedded with Australian rifle companies. They patrolled real jungles. They learned patience, silence, tracking, humility. They returned, transformed. The hardcore battalion's effectiveness skyrocketed. Casualties dropped. Intelligence improved. Lives were saved. The Pentagon hated it. Reports comparing Australian and American effectiveness were classified. Officers who praised Australian methods saw their careers stall. Institutional pride mattered more than truth. Hackworth watched this willful blindness with growing rage. 1971, the day he spoke the TRU change. June 27, 1971. Colonel David Hackworth went on ABC's Issues and Answers. He did the unthinkable. He declared the Vietnam War unwinnable. He attacked senior military leadership. He exposed the failed strategy at the heart of the war. The response was immediate: resign or be destroyed. His career ended overnight. Why he chose Australia? Hackworth could have stayed in America. Instead, he chose Australia because Australia represented everything the U.S. military had failed to become. Professional, humble, adaptable, honest. For 10 years, Hackworth lived among Australians who understood exactly who he was, and he never criticized them, not once, for the most brutally honest soldier in American history. That silence said everything.